Bongo. I'm sorry, at isa siya, kasama siya sa problema ng bayan natin. You ask your people, you ask your constituents, you ask people in the government, you ask the AAP why. Wala akong grip kay Senator Bongo. I just don't like the way he does things, including controlling the decisions of the president.
You heard former anti-communist task force spokesman Antonio Parlade blasting Senator Bongo, describing him as one of the country's biggest problems. Parlade, in an unforeseen move, has filed for presidency under the Katipunan ng Demokratikong Pilipino.
His filing comes hours before a representative filed a certificate of candidacy for President Rodrigo Duterte. But unlike what he hinted over the weekend, the president will not be facing his daughter head-on, but instead he has decided to run for senator. Good evening, I'm Gretchen Ho.
I'm Robbie Alampa. You're watching The Big Story. Former NTF-ELCAC spokesman Antonio Parlade Jr. says he decided to run for president after some senators moved to defund the anti-communist task force.
The retired general also vowed to protect President Duterte beyond his presidency. Parlade subbed in for Antonio Valdez under the Katipunan ng Demokratikong Pilipino. However, Parlade made it clear that he will not side with presidential aspirant Senator Bongo because of the way the former special assistant influences Duterte's decision-making.
I cannot align with Senator Bongo. I'm sorry, but isa siya, kasama siya sa problema ng bayan natin. I just don't like the way he does things, including controlling the decisions of the president.
To get more details and to clear things up on his filing for the presidential candidacy today, we have with us on the show former NTF-ELCAC spokesperson and retired Lieutenant General Antonio Parlade Jr. General Parlade, welcome to The Big Story.
I cannot hear you, Robbie. Robbie, I cannot hear you.
Yeah, General Parlade, can you hear me now? We seem to be having technical difficulties. We'll try to get back to General Parlade later. In the meantime, he will not be retiring after all. The president is still giving politics another shot. He's making a last-minute bid for a seat in the Senate. Mobile journalist Jacob Lazaro gives us a front seat to the story.
For a while, it almost looked like a showdown between Sara Duterte and her father, President Rodrigo Duterte. But when the dust over the substitution theatrics settled on Monday, the president opted not to challenge his own daughter's bid for the vice presidency. A representative of the president filed his COC substituting Lizelle Visorde in the senatorial race under the federalismo ng Dugong Dakilang Samahan.
Pagpatuloy ang kanya pong mga programa that was used also in 2019 to fight drugs, criminality, corruption, terrorism, and push for federalism.
Over the weekend, the Duterte family feud threatened to turn political when Communications Secretary Martin Andanar announced that the president was going head-to-head against his own daughter. The president was irked that Sara opted to run for vice president of Bongbong Marcos. The president's men rushed in to say that all was well among the Dutertes.
Nagmamahalan po ang mag-amang Rodrigo Roa Duterte at Mayor Inday Sara.
But while he avoided a direct challenge to his own daughter, the president was still doing battle by proxy. Over the weekend, Duterte said he convinced Go to run for the presidency at the last minute. But the last day of substitutions brought in a new candidate for the president. Antonio Parlade will run as president under the Katipunan ng Demokratikong Pilipino. Parlade had been the mouthpiece of the government's anti-communist drive. Asked why he chose not to run under Go's administration ticket, Parlade surprised many.
I cannot align with Senator Bongo. I'm sorry, but isa siya, kasama siya sa problema ng bayan natin.
Parlade refused to explain what he meant.
You ask your people, you ask your constituents, you ask people in the government, you ask the AAP.
Parlade still has to hurdle a major obstacle. He's substituting for Antonio Valdez, who is registered as an independent.
Basic principles, kapag independent yung kandidato, wala siyang substitution.
COMELEC spokesman James Jimenez said Parlade's case will still be reviewed. The final list of candidates will most likely be by December. Mobile journalist Jacob Lazaro, We Are One News.
Now, how are the presidential and vice presidential races looking like so far? Based on an October survey by SWS, former Senator Bongbong Marcos was the top choice for president, garnering 47% at the time of the survey, making a huge leap. Meanwhile, was Vice President Leni Robredo, who garnered 18% of the votes. Landing in third spot was Manila Mayor Isko Moreno with 13%. Senator Manny Pacquiao placed fourth with 9%, while Senators Panfilo Lacson and Bato de la Rosa were tied for the fifth spot with 5% each. For the vice presidential aspirant, Senate President Tito Soto topped the survey with 44% of the respondents saying they would vote for him for vice president. Davao City Mayor Sara Duterte was in second place with 25%, followed by Senator Kiko Pangilinan and Dr. Willie Ong, 13% each. House Deputy Speaker Lito Atienza, meanwhile, ranked fifth with 3%.
These are the other big stories tonight. After almost 2 years, public school students finally returned to their classrooms, but under totally different conditions. As COVID infections plateau, the health department is not discounting the possibility that Metro Manila might be placed in the loosest restriction by year's end. And the PBA takes on a different yet familiar game as it launches its maiden 3x3 tournament this week. These big stories after the break.
Watching the big story, I'm Robbie Alampay.
And I'm Gretchen Ho. After almost 2 years, students are now back in physical classrooms, and today marks the first day of the pilot run of limited face-to-face classes in select areas.
That went smoothly for school-aged kids in Pangasinan, but the campus they went back to no longer resembled the school they knew before the health crisis. JC Cosico with the story.
Marilu's kids, Dylan and Paul Jake, are now back to school after almost 2 years of distance learning. Aside from their uniforms, they also wore face masks and shields.
Excited po at nakapasok na po sa school. Makakapag-aral na po kami.
Yung turo ng guro po talagang maaasa po yung mga utak ng mga bata.
Longos Elementary School is among the 100 schools approved for the pilot run of face-to-face classes. Students are required to wash their hands, undergo thermal scanning, and have their IDs with QR codes scanned for contact tracing. Safety markers and signages are also installed in and outside the classrooms. There's an isolation area for those who will exhibit COVID-19 symptoms. Plastic barriers are installed between teachers and students. Teacher Diana admits that teaching while wearing a face mask is challenging.
Pag nagsasalita ka, yung laway mo and then yung moist ang hirap po.
But she says face-to-face classes are better. Some parents agree.
Meron pong internet, mahina lang po ang signal, kaya mas maganda po talaga ang face-to-face.
Out of 83 kinder to grade 3 students of the school, 80 will participate for the pilot run. All teaching and non-teaching personnel are fully vaccinated against COVID-19.
Here in the area, wala naman po kaming cases, and the entire Alaminos, we only have 4 cases left. So hopefully this will continue.
DepEd is reminding school heads that the vicinity should be free from the presence of armed combatants. This came after a uniformed personnel with a firearm was seen inside the school. The agency clarified that he was part of the security detail of a local executive. The DepEd says over 5,000 students are expected to participate in the pilot run, which will run for 2 months. For News 5, JC Cosico, We Are One News.
Metro Manila mayors want to limit contact sports like basketball and volleyball to fully vaxxed adults under Alert Level 2. The original interagency task force resolution allows contact sports even among unvaxxed children age 17 and below. But for the mayors, it should be only among the fully inoculated. Organized events have to seek local government approval first, including allowing spectators. Informal street games, meanwhile, have to be coordinated with barangays. Players have to wear masks when not playing, while spectators must also do so at all times. Anybody with COVID symptoms is automatically barred from participating.
Alert level 2 na tayo, maluwang na. It's just that nag-iingat pa rin tayo ng konti. We cannot tell, no? Hindi natin masabi. Sana maunawaan ito.
With COVID cases remaining low in Metro Manila, the Health Department says a possible easing to Alert Level 1 come Yuletide season is not too far off. Jen Calimon with the details.
Restrictions in Metro Manila is at its loosest, yet under Alert Level 2. And the Health Department is not discounting yet the possibility of more easing. Cases in Metro Manila have plateaued from the week of November 8 to 14. Daily case average 435, a slight increase from the week prior at 404.
Due to improving COVID-19 situation in Metro Manila, the DOH said de-escalating the region to Alert Level 1 by next month might be possible.
But gains have to be sustained.
Lahat ng areas, kailangan ang iyong low-risk case classification, ma-sustain mo for 2 incubation periods. Meron kang vaccination coverage, 70% for senior citizens, 70% for those with comorbidities, and at least 50% of your targeted eligible population, bakunado mo.
That's going to be a challenge, as the target coverage for those with comorbidities has yet to be reached in NCR. Add to that the still elevated number of fatalities across the country. Based on DOH data, death incidents peaked last September with 6,145 deaths. It went down to 3,184 by October and further reduced to 345 in November. Regardless, NCR and the country overall remain low risk for COVID-19. Add to that the increasing vaccination rate. From November 2 to 8 alone, the country administered a weekly job rate of 5.4 million. But despite all these developments, the DOH reminds business establishments to strictly observe capacity limitations, especially now that minors are allowed to go outside. But ultimately, ensuring kids will be virus-free would be the parents' responsibility, says the DOH.
Kaya natin inalaw ang minors lumabas is for their health, no? Mental health and physical health. Magkaroon ng exposure sa sun, maka-interact sa ibang bata, makapag-exercise, makalabas-labas outside of their homes. Pero pag nakita na ho natin na masikip yung mga lugar, huwag muna po natin dadali ng ating mga kabataan dyan.
Reporting for News 5, Jen Calimon, We Are One News.
For the big story in sports, it's all systems go for the return of PBA action this month. The league is set to open its inaugural 3x3 tournament, with some returning to the hard court, as well as sought-after rookies. Find out more in my report. Intense court action times 3. That's what PBA fans can expect from the inaugural PBA 3x3 tournament this month.
I think bagay naman siya sa mga Filipino kasi ever since mga bata pa talaga kami, 3-on-3 talaga is a go-to na laro na pwede mong gawin araw-araw with friends or competitive.
Teams vie it out for for the inaugural season of the PBA 3x3 tournament here at the Inana Sports Arena in Pasig City. And it's a mix of highly scouted rookies and PBA comeback stars, leveling up the game that Filipinos love to play in their backyard. Just like comebacking veteran Larry Fonacher and sought-after Phil Foreign player Brandon Ganuelas Rosser.
Iba na yung mga bata ngayon, mas mabilis, malalakas. So I have to find ways on how to compete with them.
We're in Pool A, and during the draw, it looks like it's going to be a competitive group. But it's good to see everybody, to kind of size everybody up a little bit.
The recently crowned Philippine Cup champs, the TNT Tropang Giga, also wants to carry the momentum at the PBA 3x3.
Gagawin namin din yun kung hanggang saan yung kaya namin mga kasama ko na tutuloy namin to para makuha namin yung champion.
There are 13 teams competing in 3 pools for 6 legs. The champion will take home 750,000 pesos. For the Samahang Basketball ng Pilipinas, the goal is to create a 50-man training pool for international tournaments, especially the upcoming Olympics.
And hopefully, we can tap yung mga outstanding players natin to represent the country. Matira matibay.
But will fans finally be allowed to watch the games in the venue?
Gumagawa na kami sulat by next week sa IATF kung paano yung mga fans. Kung ano requirements, konting pasensya po, makakapanood na ulit kayo ng PBA 3x3 live.
The PBA 3x3 kicks off on November 20, and you can catch it live on TV5, One Sports, and the Smart Giga Play app. Gretchen Ho, We Are One News. Time for another quick break. When we return, the days leading to the Comelec substitution deadline saw a few twists and turns on who's finally in the 2022 polls. Senate security arrests 2 Pharmally executives in Davao City right before they were about to flee for Malaysia. And a Pinoy bested 207 other artworks across 58 countries in the Climate Change Summit Art Competition. The artist's thoughts about that win after the break.
Good evening. You're still watching The Big Story. I'm Robbie Alampay.
And I'm Gretchen Ho. In what felt like a game of chess, several movements were made over the weekend ahead of the deadline for substitution today.
But the theatrics left the ruling party, PDP Laban, without a standard bearer. Meanos Baños with this report.
Far from the chaos last Saturday, only Representative Attorney Melchor Aranas came to the Comelec office on Monday, his filing on behalf of President Rodrigo Duterte, but not for the vice presidency like what he mentioned over the weekend. Instead, he's substituting as Senator Fermon Eliza Visorde of Federalismo ng Dugong Dakilang Samahan or PDDS. Recall that his daughter, Davao City Mayor Sara Duterte, has joined the vice presidential race under Lakas CMD. President Duterte admitted he has no communication with Inday Sara.
Totoo na hindi ko talaga alam. Nalaman ko noon nag-file siya. I'm sure yung pagtakbo ni Sara, decision nila bongbong yun. Siya ang number 1 sa survey kung bakit siya pumayag na tatakbo lang bise.
Sara will be forming a ticket with Partido Federal Pilipinas standard bearer Bongbong Marcos.
Sa palagay ko, yun na yata ang pinakamalakas na tambalan pagkadating ng halalan.
But the elder Duterte is not too thrilled.
Pero yung pagtakbo ni Marcos, sasabihin ko ang rason kung bakit hindi ako makasuporta sa kanya. Gaya kay yung Lenny, mga pro-communist yan eh.
In a Facebook post, Mayor Sara said she's gunning for the vice presidency to meet with her supporters halfway as they egg her on to run for president. Lakas CMD is in the process of formalizing the adoption of a standard bearer who will be the running mate of Inday Sara. The administration party PDP Laban is now left without a standard bearer after Senator Bato de la Rosa withdrew his candidacy, while Senator Bongo is now running under another party, the Federalismo ng Dugong Dakilang Samahan or PDDS. President Duterte has already expressed all-out support for Go.
Niloko nila eh. Umiiyak si Bong. Sabi mo, huwag kang umiyak. Bakit ka iyak? Mayroon bukas ang presidente. Tumakbo ka. Bakit ka iiyak dyan sa dahilang anak ko sumingit bigla?
Reporting for News 5, Mean Los Baños, we are One News.
Senate security on Sunday arrested 2 Pharmally executives who attempted to escape to Malaysia from Davao City. Pharmally Secretary Mohit Dargani and President Twinkle Dargani were aboard a private jet when Senate security intercepted them. The Darganis are now detained at the Senate building in Pasay. They've been issued arrest orders. This was issued last October 19 for refusing to submit subpoenaed financial documents. The Senate is probing Pharmally for billions of pesos worth of irregularities in pandemic supplies. The Philippine National Police, meanwhile, expressed readiness to take the siblings into custody.
Mag-coordinate po kami sa Senate or the Congress that have them in custody. May authority kasi yan, irerespeto namin. Of course, we will look on how we will be able to be of help para doon sa ganitong sitwasyon.
What will you do with the time you have? That is the pressing question of the film Tick, Tick, Boom. The film marks the directorial debut of Pulitzer Prize, Tony, and Grammy Award winner Lin-Manuel Miranda.
It felt so powerful and affirming to be making art in one of the most challenging times in our world's history and fighting for the importance of art in these times.
Did you know that Miranda's brainchild, the mega hit musical Hamilton, was inspired by Tick, Tick, Boom's original Broadway staging?
When I first saw Tick, Tick, Boom, it strengthened my resolve to do this, to try and do this for a living, or at least do it every day, even if no one ever paid me to write songs.
Andrew Garfield stars as Jonathan Larson, the man behind the hit musical Rent. Anime fans, make some noise! The live-action version of the neo-noir sci-fi anime series Cowboy Bebop is up for release this week. Considered one of the greatest animes of all time, the series boasts of a diverse cast, headed by John Cho as the spunky Spike Spiegel and Mustafa Shakir as ex-cop Jet Black.
The weird vision was a completely white world, you know, in film and television that didn't match reality. To me, that didn't seem to be the world I lived in. So this feels refreshing in that it feels so normal.
You know, we have to reflect reality, and I think that's what we're doing.
Joining them is Daniela Padilla. Cowboy Bebop revolves around space bounty hunters who hunt down criminals across the solar system. The series drops on November 19 on Netflix. For News 5, MJ Marfori, we are One News.
Yet another digital artist shows that Pinoys are world-class talents.
The Leyte native bags the grand prize of the COP26 Summit Art Competition. Brix Dumas bested 207 other entries across 58 countries for the Digital Art for Climate competition. Dumas's Nexus depicts a hand holding a drink in a plastic bag with a straw. It also holds a cigarette that emits leaves instead of smoke.
Dumas will receive 1,500 euros, around 85,000 pesos. But the artist, who's also a Yolanda survivor, says the cash prize is mere cherry on top.
Pero yung makapagbigay ka ng something call to action or kumbaga manggising ng mga tao sa nangyayari sa mundo ay ito yung parang biggest reward.
May nakakatuwa itong si Briggs, kausap ko siya kahapon, Sabi niya, binigyan daw siya ng kumpiyansa, ng confidence ito kasi first time niya manalo sa competition. Tsaka tinanong ko, sabi ko, anong gagawin mo dun sa prize money, sa 85,000 yan? Sabi niya, alam mo kung ano sabi niya? Pambabayad daw niya ng utang. Kasi he decided to go full-time as a visual artist, kaya lang nag-pandemic, so nawala yung mga project. So I'm very, very happy for him kasi he's learning daw to pivot to digital art.
Oh, and you were talking about this last week. I didn't know na Yolanda survivor pa pala siya, di ba?
Yung pa. Nasira yung bahay niya doon sa Leyte. Kaya it really means a lot to him to be able to send the message for climate justice.
Personal.
Oo. And speaking of correspondence, I think you'll be able to continue the conversation.
Oo, pasensya na po. Hindi po natuloy yung kay General Parlade, but it looks like he will be our guest on the Chiefs immediately after the big story.
Well, that wraps up today's big story. Catch us again tomorrow at 8 p.m. on Signal Channels 8 and 250.
Please like our Facebook page, One News. For more in-depth analysis, visit our webpage, onenews.ph. Mask on.
Wash hands.
And stay safe, Philippines. I'm Robbie Alampay.
And I'm Gretchen Hall. We are One News. Have a good evening.